How's it going? Dave here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about suspensions. Suspensions are a really great way of adding a little bit more tension to your chords, and they can really enhance your chord progressions. So how it works is we play a chord, but then we add a note that's not a chord tone to add that tension. We accentuate that note and then resolve that note that creates tension down or up a step or a half step to a chord tone. So we're going to be looking at 4 different types of suspensions today. We're going to be looking at the 9/8 suspension. We're going to be looking at the 9/3 suspension. We are going to be looking at the 4/3 suspension and the 7/6 suspension. So let's start off with the 9/8 suspension. Now with the 9/8 suspension, what we are doing is we're taking a ninth in our chord and resolving it down to the 8th, which just means the octave. So for example, if we're playing a C chord, the 9th of the C is D, and we're going to take that D, add that onto our C chord, which makes a C add 9 chord, and resolve it down to the 8th, or the octave, which is C, creating a standard C chord. We've got a C add 9 chord here. We've got that 9th there, and we're resolving it down to the 8th. So we get this kind of sound. And you can also do it with minor chords as well. Let's take an A minor 7 chord right here like this. And what we can do is we can place our little finger on the 7th fret of the high E string. That is the 9th. And then we can resolve it down to the octave. So we get this sound. So that is the 9/8 suspension. Now let's take a look at the 9/3 suspension. The 9/3 suspension is where we play a chord with a ninth in there. That ninth is that note that's not part of our standard major or minor chord, and we resolve it up to the 3rd. So how can we do this? For example, if we're playing a D major 7 chord, this note on the B string is our 3rd, and if we take our little finger off, we get the 9th. So we'd start off the chord by playing it like this without our little finger on to highlight that 9th, and then place our little finger on to resolve to the 3rd. So we get the 9/3 suspension there. You can also do it with minor chords as well. So if we take a D minor 7 chord and we take our middle finger off, we have the 9th there, and then we can resolve it up to the 3rd there. So that is the 9/3 suspension. Now let's take a look at the 4/3 suspension. So the 4/3 suspension is similar to the 9/3 suspension, except we're resolving from the 4th down to the 3rd rather than the 9th up to the 3rd. So let's take a look at how we can do this with, let's say, an A chord. So with an A chord, our 3rd is on the B string, and the 4th is just the next note up. So we'd start our chord like that as a sus4 chord, and then we resolve that 4th down to the 3rd. And you can also do it with maybe an E chord. So we'd play this E with the 4th, and then take our little finger off to resolve to the 3rd, and we get this 4/3 suspension. And it can create a really nice extended resolution for your chords. So you can build some tension, and then instead of just resolving straight to your chord, you can resolve to a suspension which extends that tension even longer. And it also makes the payoff of the chord even more satisfying to the listener. Now let's take a look at the 7/6 suspension. The 7/6 suspension is a little bit more tricky to pull off because we're resolving from a 7th down to a 6th. So the chord that you want to resolve to has to have a 6th in it. And I like to do this from a D major 9 chord. So if we take this D major 9, and the 7th is the note on the G string, And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our little finger off to resolve to the 6th, and we get this D6-9 chord. So 7, 6. And that is the 7-6 suspension. So those are 4 suspensions you can use in your songwriting. I have put together a little song using all 4 of these suspensions. So check it out, and then I'll explain what I did afterwards. So in that little song that I just wrote, I started off with a 9-3 suspension on an A chord. So we're playing like this A chord, but with the open B string, that's the 9th, and then resolving it to the 3rd. 9-3 suspension. Then we move to an F sharp minor chord. And here we're doing a 9-8 suspension because we're doing the F sharp minor 7, but with our little finger on the 4th fret of the high E string, which is our 9th. And then taking our little finger off to resolve down to the 8th or the octave. Then we move to D major 9, where we take the 7th and resolve it down to the 6th to get a D6-9 chord, like we did earlier. So that's a 7-6 suspension. So far we've done a 9-3 suspension, we've done a 9-8 suspension, we've done a 7-6 suspension, and the last one is a 4-3 suspension on an E7 chord. So we play the E7 chord, but with our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, which is our 4th. And then we take the middle finger off to get our E7 chord, which is done by resolving down to the 3rd there. 4, 3. So altogether we've got 9, 3, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3. And then what I do is the second half of the track, there's a little lead line where I just emphasized those suspensions. So 9, 3, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3. So suspensions don't have to be played within the chords that you're playing. They could be highlighted with a lead melody as well. And they can be done with vocals, they can be done with anything that's capable of writing a melody. So if you enjoyed this video on suspensions, then please click like, let me know what you thought in the comments, and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell. And also, I'm offering the first 2 chapters of my book, Chord Charisma, for free. In these first 2 chapters, you'll learn the functions of every chord in your key, so then you know which chords might be best to go next in your chord progressions. And then from there, once you've created a solid foundational chord progression, then you'll learn how to add 7th, 9th, 11th and 13th to your chords to make them sound even more spicy and sophisticated and jazzy. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, head to the description and you can download the first 2 chapters of my book for free there. I'll see you in the next video.